I feel like I have to preface the fact that I said we should record this, and you're like, no. And you proceed to have a very florid 10-minute informative discussion about that awful David French podcast that you listened to, and we sat here and had a completely reasonable discussion about it. No microphones. And then you're like, see, that was a nice 10 minutes. And I'm like, see, that could have been a nice fucking episode. And here we are.
We don't put out 10-minute episodes.
It doesn't matter. We sit here and babble for 40 minutes about restaurant experiences from 2002. I think we could manage.
Well, you know, maybe people listen to our episodes when they're taking a shit, and then, 10 minutes in, they're like, well, now I got no more content.
How long do you think that people take to take a shit that listen to us? Do you think they're sitting there for 40 minutes to an hour? See a doctor. Our 5 listeners that are sitting there with their legs falling asleep because they're listening to us at 1x speed. You know you can speed us up, right? By the way?
Not on YouTube.
Yes, on YouTube. On YouTube, they have a speed control, I believe, that allows you to listen at like 1.5 times, 2 times. I know Spotify goes up to 3.5 times, which could be helpful. So in future, you can cram in more of us and less.
That's a scary thought.
Well, that might be the future. Anyway. The fuck were you talking about?
So I really have to rehash this conversation.
Yes, you do.
Last night, because I couldn't go to sleep...
It was a dark and stormy night.
I put on the latest episode of Advisory Opinions,
That put me to sleep.
Which is the legal podcast that I have referenced several times.
And by the way, don't go out there and listen to it on your own. Normally when I plug something, or when we plug something, I think it's good to promote it. I'm not plugging this. In fact, I'm anti-plugging it. I'm unplugging it. I am unplugging anything related to David French. So he listens to it so that you don't have to.
Are you done now?
No.
Well, okay, so as I was saying, David French was not on this episode because he was on vacation, so I didn't have to listen to his whiny voice. Instead, I got to listen to the woman that I enjoy listening to, Sarah Isgur.
David!
I like her. Shut up.
David! Anyone who does a podcast, her taste in friends is questionable. Her taste in colleagues is questionable. Isn't doing a podcast with David French considering aiding and abetting? Like, aren't you also liable?
Look, if you listen to it, you would like her too because she is fair. I don't agree with her all the time, but she's fair. She's fair. And from the conversation that we just had, you should agree with me that, okay, she's made some good points here.
I should.
Anyway, David French was not there. He is on vacation with his 12 ingrate children.
I don't know if they're ungrateful. I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, he's there with the Rainbow family. Okay. But yes. They're on that Carnival cruise line where there was a fight. I'm sorry. I have to take a second. I'm just imagining David French.
They're waiting for the news, and you're just giving us hypothetical.
I'm just imagining David French on a pool lounger at the Carnival cruise where there was the fist fight, and just him sitting out there and being like, "This isn't constitutional." They're just beating the shit out of each other on the Lido deck with Mai Tai glasses. Trump's at fault. Where are you going?
I am trying to go to a spot where I am not picking up you on my microphone. Because you're so fucking loud.
Mitch is sitting 2 blocks away currently. He's closer to the beach than I am. Anyway.
Still picking you up somehow.
Well, my voice carries. That's what happens when you're in the theater. I don't know who that was supposed to be an impression of, but it works. Anyway.
And it's all being cut, so...
No, that's not being cut. Yes, you cannot cut my little funny bon mot. In fact, I don't think that we have to cut... I'm going to make a proclamation of emancipation. I don't think we have to cut anything from these episodes anymore. You're a lot less racist than you used to be. We drink a lot less when we do this. I mean, we're just on coffee now. I think that we can go back to uncut episodes.
I think we should go back to recording when we're drinking a little bit.
No, there's an entire segment of an episode at the beginning that had to be like an entire 20-minute discussion because I came back and I sounded like Liza after 4 Percocets. Like I was like,
having 1.5 drinks and recording
1.5
and being
stupid,
being animated and allowing me to come out of my shell a little bit and not be so unfluid when I speak is helpful for me. So I don't care what you look like. It's helpful for me.
In future podcasts, it's going to be me with 3 cups of coffee, you after happy hour, and Kyle there to moderate. I don't know. That's going to be a really rough setup. But anyway,
so then
opinions.
That means either you have to drink coffee at 5 p.m. or I have to start drinking alcohol at 8 a.m.
Either way is not going to end well because I'm not having you pregame for the gym. I'm just going to watch you fall asleep on one of the bikes. You're going to be on the Planet Fitness Fails video compilation because you slumped over one of the bikes and you smell like vodka. By the way, if you ever want to treat yourselves, there's a TikTok. God, I sound old now. But there's a TikTok about Planet Fitness Fails, and it's showing these people using every machine there incorrectly. And it's like when you walk into Planet Fitness for the first time, and it's set to a slowed down version of Never Gonna Dance Again by George Michael, and it's so good. So, anyway. Look, see, I recommend good content. You recommend shit. But back to your advisory opinions. Anyway, talk about David French. Okay. So, David's gone. David's dead. Oh, God. No. Don't get me that excited. David's dead. It's Sarah Isgur Flores and a law professor.
Okay. Yes.
Do you know who it is?
I forget his name.
Larry Tribe?
I forget his name. He had a very, very impressive resume that she started with. So I don't doubt his intelligence. So they were talking about the Trump fiasco that's going on right now with his fight with the DOJ, basically.
So the FBI raid and the legal implications.
Yes. So
as of now, I'm sorry, just to sort of tee this up.
Yes.
So as of now, they went in, they took some documents, they took pictures of the documents strewn across the floor, which they threw them across the floor. Trump's attorneys went to a judge and asked for a special master to be appointed to go through the documents. And the special master is supposed to be an unbiased person to determine what can you look at, what can you not look at, and basically sets parameters for their investigation. Which I've heard somebody say, I was reading Twitter, I forgot who said it, they were saying, if Trump's legal team was smart, that day, they would have gone to the judge to ask for a special master. They waited 2 weeks. The FBI's probably already looked through everything. So that's kind of a little too late. But it throws a big wrench in the investigation.
So, interestingly, they hadn't finished looking through it. But we'll get to that because I mentioned that a little bit. So, it's also important to note from your little snippet there that he invoked basically executive privilege. So he wants a special master to look through all of these documents to look and see, is there anything in there that would be unadmissible because of executive privilege, something of that nature. I'm not a legal scholar. I'm not a political scholar. I'm not sure how all of that works.
For example, in the box, I think, was his letter to Kim Jong-un, or one of the letters back, or something like that. Amidst a bunch of other documents, there's just, you would classify it, I guess, as memorabilia from someone's time in office. Now, certain things have to be donated. I think if they're above a certain monetary value, they have to be donated to the National Archives or something like that.
But personal correspondence is not monetary.
Right. It can't be like a necklace from the King of Saudi Arabia or something like that. Like, that obviously has to go in. But, yeah, personal correspondence.
Okay, so again, it's important to say that he invoked some type of executive privilege here.
Right.
So, and I'll start off with that, I guess. So one of Sarah Isger's points was, and I found this very interesting. The term executive privilege, while laid out in the Constitution or in one of the amendments, somewhere in there, it's not well defined, and it basically is a way to separate out. It's basically a separation of powers thing. So it's basically a way for the executive to say, "No, I'm sorry, Congress, you can't look at this. No, I'm sorry, judicial branch, you can't look at this. This is my executive privilege. It is things for my eyes only." And
it's a precedent. I'm looking here.
Okay.
So to kind of add a little bit of color to this, it's been a precedent since our first president, when the Senate, other bodies asked for certain documents, and the president invoked executive privilege, saying that was not relevant information. So it's gone back to George Washington.
Okay.
And it's been cited
but
by
the
Supreme Court.
It is a separation of powers thing.
Right, saying that this is the executive branch has this particular level of oversight. So they have oversight over this area. If other powers or if other branches of government had oversight over these areas, it would be overstepping their bounds. So certain things reside in the executive.
Right. So, but what is not clear through that precedent is, when does executive privilege stop? Because technically, President Trump is a former executive, and as we always say, a president is always a president, right? They always have that title, even if they're out of office.
And I think I don't know if this is true, I think still technically maintains some clearance level.
Well, yeah, you have to, because you've seen a lot of privileged information.
You know where the aliens are. You can't unring that bell.
Right. You can't unknow things, right? So,
well, I think that was an issue with Hillary Clinton having some classified documents with her, is they said something to the effect of, well, if they were on her home server, the only other person with access to that server would be her husband, who had executive privilege and that level clearance, so technically it's not a clearance violation. That was an argument that was laid out at the time. That's all that I'm saying.
Okay.
So former president has oversight over that. Clearance.
Right, clearance. But do they have executive privilege? That's the question that we don't know the answer to, because there is no precedent for this. Except, as you brought up in our earlier discussion, Nixon invoked executive privilege when he was out of office.
Right. And the Supreme Court reinforced that at the time.
Right. However, and I don't know the specifics of when Nixon did that. So, according to the law professor that was on the podcast, they're not comparable. So this situation with Trump and Nixon's situation were not comparable. That the situations were so drastically different that you couldn't say that is precedent for Trump in this case. So the question still remains: can Trump claim executive privilege? So that's a big question mark already. Secondly, this whole idea of assigning a special master to go through the documents, they are both Sarah and this law professor of the opinion that that person does not exist. The person who both the DOJ and Trump's team would agree would be neutral and would agree to allow to look through the documents, and who also has the clearance to look through said documents, that person does not exist. And so finding a special master is going to be extremely difficult. And if they even find someone, they may not agree to do it because they don't want their name, in the middle of all of this.
Right.
They don't want, either way the special master decides how to go about doing some of this, he's going to have he or she will have half the country hating them afterward. If
what's like the Mueller deal, like that was a complete flop, and the Durham deal, it's a complete flop. There's no individual in the country, I think, that's in a position to be able to do something like that, and that's why these investigations are so fraught at this stage. Whether you're investigating Hillary's emails, whether you're investigating the Russian claims of interference in the 2016 election, whether you're investigating the 2020 election, any of these levels, or even the impeachment process, they're so fraught because at this stage, half these people that are being investigated are the ones who are in charge of the investigative bodies. Everything is so intertwined now that there is no branch of government that's immune. You have Supreme Court justices that were appointed by 2 of them by this president, 3 of them by this president, who's being investigated. Okay. You have members of the bureaucracy investigating other members of the bureaucracy. You have congressional people on one side or another investigating something like that. And you have members of the Department of Justice who are political appointees by either one administration or a previous administration. Now, that's not to say they can't be fair. I mean, we rely on them to be fair in a lot of situations. But a lot of these investigations are so crosshatched, and it's like, okay, well, this administration is going to investigate this administration, and then this one's going to investigate this one. And I remember at the time when Clinton, when Trump was saying about Hillary, lock her up and everything, they were like, a current administration has never instigated an investigation to a previous administration. Like, this is unprecedented. And now this entire administration has been defined by how much can we investigate Trump and make life difficult on him or his allies or something like that. So it's just, if we get to this precedent, by the way, you want to talk about precedent, if we get to this precedent, every successive administration is going to be elected on the basis of them investigating the previous one. Like some kind of Brazilian system of governments. It doesn't work. And when you look to find somebody in the justice system who's not involved in these decisions and situations, I think you're going to have to go down to the janitor, who might be the special master. Can I throw my hat in the ring for special master?
You don't have clearance.
I could. I'd shop in clearance all the time. I'd be great. I know clearance like the back of my hand. Where's your clearance, Clarence?
Anyway, the other...
I love how you just say... Hold on a second, I have to point it out. I love how I do a bit and you're like... Anyway.
That's our relationship here.
Our relationship is a cul-de-sac. I mention something, you turn the car back around, and we just keep trying to look for a parking spot. I'm going to make you listen to a fucking improv tape. You're the only person I know who you can someone's like, yes, and you're like, and what? Anyway, back to Sarah Paulson, whatever the fucking name.
So the two other kind of small points here. One good and one kind of like I don't know how to make of it. So, Sarah is not the biggest Trump fan, as we all know, and none of those people at the Dispatch are.
That's the only defining quality that they have so far.
Sort of. So she is constantly like questioning Trump's actions as like, is he trying to get away with something? And so she questioned one action that was specifically not, I don't want to say kosher because it's not technically, he didn't do anything wrong or illegal, but he did something you normally don't do, which is according to her and the law professor, if a search warrant is executed by a judge, if you are questioning that search warrant in any capacity, as in wanting a special master after the fact and blah, 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 you usually have to go back to the judge who executed the search warrant. They did not do that. They didn't go back to that judge, apparently. They went to a judge that Trump appointed when he was president to her position that she has now. And that's just not how things are supposed to be done.
But somehow it works?
There's nothing written in law that you have to go back to the same judge, but precedent or most people do. I don't know. That's what they were saying.
So they found... The only thing I can think of, because I've heard about this Reinhart judge who was the original one in Florida who allowed them to issue this. And apparently they had difficulty finding a judge that would issue the search warrant because, you know, what judge wants to be the one that signs their name on the search warrant of a former president's home? Like, that's not something that you look forward to as a judge. You're probably going to have a target on the back of you because of that decision by half the country. And I think that that's rightfully so in the way that judges are supposed to be apolitical in how they execute the law. In any capacity, at any level, whether it's a local judge or it's something that's all the way up to the federal or Supreme Court, that's how we treat it. The only thing I can think of is that they had overlapping jurisdictions. So maybe one was a district judge, one was a federal judge over the area of where Palm Beach is, so they were able to do something like that. That's the only thing I can think of, because in that case, it's like, okay, fine. If it's granted, and I guess the last I heard is that the Department of Justice is having to appeal this now. I guess it's okay. I wish that I was more versed in being able to understand that, but it seems like it just must be overlapping jurisdiction, I'm guessing.
I don't know.
Because it's valid. It's valid. Like,
right.
It's valid that they have to have a special master now.
Right. So, but I guess my point is, Sarah raised a red flag saying this looks a little shady, like you're going specifically to a judge that you know is going to be in your favor because you appointed her or you nominated her, blah, blah, blah. Well, no, it's not necessary and not necessarily true, but it's plausible, you know. But anyway, the other little kind of caveat here is...
I'm sorry, I just wanted to go through I know you like the details. I'm just adding to this. So her name is U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon in West Palm Beach, Florida. So she's a district judge. Bruce Reinhart is also a U.S. magistrate judge for the Southern District of Florida. So U.S. magistrate judges are appointed by vote, so they have to be elected. Mm-hmm. U.S. district judges are appointed by an
executive, yeah.
An executive. So, from what I understand, a district judge has precedence over a magistrate judge. Because a magistrate judge covers a certain area, but a district judge, that's a federal appointment.
Right.
So them going to her is probably a shortcut in the sense that, let's say you go to the district judge, let's say you go to the magistrate judge, the elected judge, and they say, no, I authorized the search warrant for a reason, appeal denied, you would end up going to the district judge anyway, and they would probably either grant it or not grant it. So it sounds like they just went one step up.
Right, so this is just her way of saying, this is her way of making him look a little bit suspicious when there's a valid reason that he might have done what he did.
Right.
Okay. So,
or Reinhart might have already said no, and so that's why they had to go up. I don't know. That's what it sounds like. And what I mentioned to you as the point is, I cannot imagine a situation where a judge that signed off on a search warrant then goes and says that the search warrant is invalid, because that implicates the judge in either issuing a search warrant improperly or some kind of constitutional liability, because a judge is supposed to look at the merits of a search warrant. I mean, does a judge really want to be up against the FBI and the Department of Justice in a situation like that? I can't think of a time where a judge would, which is like, it's the same thing that's fraught when you have a judge that's ruling on a judge that's issuing a search warrant for a president's home. Okay, the things that it opens you up to is not just like, oh, you're going to be disliked, which apparently this judge was also involved in the Epstein case in a bad way, so that's not great. But it goes beyond being liked or being disliked for your choices. It also implicates you for, if the current executive and current judiciary is overreaching, then you are now stuck in the middle between other members of the judiciary and other things like a special master. So I honestly think that the smart choice for the judge in this situation would have been to not allow the search warrant to go forward. But anyway, now there's a special master, which everybody thought was not possible, apparently.
So this is the other thing, and this could be a good thing for Trump, and I don't know really who's to blame for this. it's all kind of dumb. So when this judge, what did you say her name was? I'm sorry.
Judge Cannon.
Cannon.
Judge Cannon.
So when Judge Cannon made the ruling that there should be a special master appointed, she did not at the same time tell the DOJ to stop the investigation. And so to your point earlier, when you said that they were probably already done with the investigation and looked through all this stuff, they weren't. But in the interim of when Judge Cannon issued the this is per I guess information on the inside that Sarah was able to get, when Judge Cannon gave the order to have the special master, she did not tell them to stop the investigation. And so they finished their investigation and they looked through all the documents, and so are now basically done. But according to Sarah, that is not smart of the DOJ, because if a special master is appointed and goes through these documents and finds anything that is inappropriate or unadmissible or anything like that, anyone who looked at those documents, anyone who was part of that investigation in the DOJ has to be removed from it, and they have to start over from scratch. They have to start with new people going through all of the information all over again.
So this could take years.
Yes.
Because every single piece has to be scrutinized for not just what it is, so it needs to be cataloged and archived, but what the implications of it is. So that's a step 2, which means you probably have to contact people that are in some kind of intelligence capacity to talk about that. Step 3, it has to be someone who has the clearance to be able to do that, and some of those top secret things are a 2 to 3 person level of clearance. Like, it'd be president, DNI, and one head of one Defense Department head. That's it. Those are the only people who have the clearance to understand that information. So that's pretty impossible. And then step 3, substantively, each thing has to be decided on the merits of, did it just mention a nuclear base? Or is it actually discussing the mechanics of a nuclear base? Did it mention something that's already in the public domain? Could something be considered classified where it's already been relatively declassified? I mean, like I'd said earlier...
But why would the DOJ be so stupid as to continue the investigation and continue to have people look through things that the judge already said these could be potential no-go, like no game, like game changers?
I think, and because... Okay, I'm going to go a couple steps back. There's a new contributor to Dispatch who is the former Allah pundit on Hot Air. His name was released. He identified himself after 16 years of anonymity. I don't remember what it was, but he's some dumb Italian. And his thing, one of his last columns for Hot Air, he mentioned something like, well, they'd asked Trump multiple times to return documents, and he just didn't. And so his thing from that entire situation was not necessarily that Trump had something to hide, but by the 5th or 6th request for documents to be returned, he was just like, fuck you, I'm not giving you anything. I've given you everything that's relevant, or that I think is relevant. Which a president has the right to do in a lot of situations. So going back to the merits of what could possibly be in there, it doesn't sound like, despite a couple of leaks by the Justice Department that, it's nuclear, or it's nuclear about another country, what information do we not know about any country's nuclear capabilities at this stage? Or is not known by multiple other countries, or is just easily findable through Freedom of Information Act or public domains? It's not like there's a country that has nuclear weapons that we don't know about, or it's not publicly known about. Like the 5 major ones, 6 major ones, plus, okay, South Africa got rid of one. Israel probably has one. Maybe it's confirmation of that. Who knows? Everyone knows it, though. It's not like what could the information could possibly rise to the level of nuclear capabilities that's privileged information at this stage. Even the U.S. and Russia for the past 45 years have pretty open with each other about the number of nuclear weapons that they have, down to the number of warheads. That was part of reducing them. It was like, okay, you have 50,000, I have 25,000. Let's bring it down to 10,000 each. Then let's bring it down to 1,000 each. I don't know why we're not down to like 5 at this point. I think that'd be smart, but whatever. The SALT treaty. So I don't understand what information that he could have that's considered that. Now, when they showed the picture of all the information that was taken from Mar-a-Lago, it showed some envelopes that said top secret, SCI, classified, things like that. But the envelopes later were found out, as they said, 20 plus envelopes were empty. It was just file folders. There was nothing inside. So they spent all of this effort, gained all of this, the last, maybe, I guess you could say, politically neutral entity, the Justice Department, in a lot of people's minds, not saying that they have been, but in a lot of people's minds, their credibility is thrown out, much like, many other bureaucracies in the past few years, because they spent all this effort for nothing. To find a bunch of empty envelopes? I mean, if you think that a former president is concealing documents that are critical to national security to the point where, I don't know, he's going to sell them to a terrorist organization or something like this, don't you think you would have handled that the second that person left office? Like February 2021, March, April, May, June, July, and then do that another year. And then finally get to this point, it's like, oh yeah, he took a signed photo of him and Kim Jong-un.
Okay.
Ugh, we can't have that.
But you and I both know that this isn't about any type of national security. They're not worried about any of that stuff. That's not the issue.
But that's what they're claiming.
I know, but they just want to catch him
on that merit.
I know, but they just want to catch him in doing something potentially illegal.
So it's almost like they're trying to do an audit of the documents that he took home with him. It's similar to like an audit. They want to go through and see every single thing that he has, and also which I think is very invasive and wildly unprecedented, they want to go through his personal effects. I mean, for God's sake, they went through his underwear drawer, his wife's underwear drawer. They want to go through his personal effects, I think, to find if he has any information on people currently in government, which he might. The only other embarrassing thing was that they said he might have something about President Macron's sex life, which no one really cares about. I don't know. How are you going to embarrass a Frenchman? You're going to tell him he smells good? I really don't think that there's any information that he could possibly have. But maybe it's just they just want to see, does he have anything on any of us? And is he holding that as a bargaining chip? So if we try to go after him, he's going to say, aha, I have this. And wouldn't he put that away in a place where they couldn't find it? Not just like a random safe in an office supply place that's next to a dining room.
Well, but that's the other thing is, and I'll this will be my last point here before we wrap this up.
And you said it would only be 10 minutes.
They had to, when he was president, he brought those files to Mar-a-Lago at the time,
right? And
they had to approve that he had a, what do they call it, a SCIF, right? A secure, whatever it stands for. A place that is secure, a place that, only he can get into, all of the, it had to check a bunch of boxes. The files that they found were still in that secure place.
Right.
So even though he's not in office anymore, and those probably should have been returned, they were in a secure place that the government already deemed secure beforehand.
Right.
So again, doesn't seem to be that big of a deal. Like to any normal person, you'd look at the information and be like, what's the fucking big deal? The big deal is they're just trying to catch him with his pants down.
And you know what? This is interesting. Okay, I just thought about this. Remember at the beginning of 2021 when it was still not sure what the outcome of the election was, you had some people calling it, some people not. It threw the electors and everything into question. And they knew, I remember there was a story at the time saying he still hasn't packed yet because he thinks he's still going to hold on and they're going to recount some of the votes and all of that. I think their thinking was he packed very quickly, and they probably just shoved shit in boxes. Took him out of the Oval Office, literally just picked up drawers, dumped them, put them back in. Because it sounded like everything got ready to move out within about 48 to 72 hours. They packed up the entire White House, all their personal effects, and got out of town. Okay. If that's the case, which it sounds like, they probably knew maybe he took a few things that he shouldn't have. And now we're going to go and just kind of like, we're just going to make him a little bit scared. We're going to see if there's anything that he shouldn't have in there. I think that that's what they thought. Because unlike other presidents that take 2-3 months to pack up after they either retire or lose an election or whatever, they knew that he probably moved out of the White House faster than anybody. Even Jackie Kennedy was allowed plenty of time to like live at the White House, pack up her things and go. They told him to get out within like 48 fucking hours. And remember the whole thing of he's not going to go. He's not going to leave. He's going to stay here until the inauguration. He's going to stay here past the inauguration. He's going to sleep in bed with Joe Biden. You know, who knows? Could have been hot. But he had to pack his shit and get out in the way of like when people move out of a college dorm, like finals, and then you got to go. Like it was kind of on that same schedule. So they probably thought, we're going to catch him in a mistake. And you know what? Remember the other... I'm sorry, I'm putting this together now. There was another story at the time, at the end of the Trump administration, saying, and it was like General Milley and a few other people, basically admitting to, we don't give Trump classified information anymore. We don't trust him with it. Remember that? That was kind of the narrative of like, we're not sharing that information with him. There's certain things that we talk about that we don't share with him because he'll just go talk about it at a press conference. He'll do all of that. We don't want to share that information with him. So they made a big deal about not sharing classified information with him. Then they say he had classified information. During a period of time, by the way, when a very limited number of people were allowed into the White House to see the president. So there was not many people could come in or out because it was COVID, and all of this. The amount of people that he physically met with dwindled to a very small amount, and people had to be tested and checked and all this and that to even get access to get in there. There's nothing in there. He hadn't been privy to much classified information at all in this past year in office because they admitted to not giving him any. The amount of people allowed in the White House throttled to the lowest level it's been in decades because of the virus. And he just packed his shit quick and left. So there's nothing in there, which is why they've probably been finding so many empty folders. And they were thinking maybe we can get him on a process charge or something like that, or obstruction, which is the biggest bullshit ever. You know, anything can be considered obstruction of justice. If you stop by and look at a car accident, you're obstructing justice, you know. So I genuinely think they thought they could rattle him a little bit with this. And the special master situation has thrown a complete wrench, and all they're going to find is empty file folders. And even if it's one thing that might be, oh, we have information on the Israeli nuclear weapon or the French nuclear weapon or something like that, it's either been declassified or the president can unilaterally declassify any information just by virtue of it falling into their hands.
Well, to put a pin in this and to repeat what you said earlier, this buys him a lot of time. So this could take years. So It was smart for his team to do this just because they know just finding a special master is going to be impossible.
And that special master is Hillary Clinton.
And then having the special master go through all this stuff, and if they find one thing, having the DOJ have to do the entire investigation over again, this could take years. And he might run and win again. Who knows?
This could take till the end of the second Trump presidency. Yeah, and if he does run and win again and he gets in that office, anything again can be unilaterally declassified. It's over. What a mess that they've made for themselves. That they have all of these things going on. Wouldn't you rather say, look, we tried to impeach him once, didn't work. We tried to impeach him twice, didn't work. We tried to remove him from office, he went. We tried to, investigate him, didn't work. The Russia thing didn't work. All these things didn't work. At this stage, is there really any other investigation they can have beyond this? What are they going to slap him with an OSHA violation at Mar-a-Lago because the wheelchair ramps are not wide enough? Or a Disabilities Act violation? Or OSHA because the cook is using too sharp of knives? Like, where are we at now?
I told you where this is going. They've pulled out every stop to try and stop him. The last thing, they're gonna pull a Huey Long and they're gonna have him assassinated. If this doesn't work, someone's coming after his life.
He's too fat.
I'll put my money on it.
He's too big. What's he gonna do? You get him on a golf course?
Huey Long wasn't a small man either.
Well, but I don't know. It could just get lodged in there somewhere.
I'm just saying. I wouldn't put it past. They've tried and tried and tried every way they could to stop.
Oh, I wouldn't either.
They'll go for it. I think if this doesn't work. So if there's an assassination attempt, you heard it here first.
Well, great. Now they're going to investigate our podcast, and they're going to find out that. What are they going to find out? What are they going to find out?
I don't know. That we're extremists. We're
one of those MAGA people.
We're right-wing extremists. Yeah.
I love that, and I know that you want to end this, and we will. But just a little addendum. I love that now that we have a political persecution going on from the executive branch and the administration, I love that the term that they've used as a bad word is MAGA people. Make America Great Again people. And they think, I don't know what pollster or focus group told them that it's a dirty word, but the only people that works with are the people who have profile photos with 3 masks on, who told you to get vaccine boosted after saying I don't trust the vaccine, who are telling you that they'll lay them and their grandchildren's lives on the line for people in Ukraine. It's those people. The people like that woman at the White House the other day who said that Biden smells wonderful. There's people like that out there, and it plays to them. But those people are such a small minority of wealthy white retirees.
But to be fair, MAGA is their Antifa. So we say, fuck Antifa, and they say, oh, how can you say you're against anti-fascists? So that means you're fascist. And then they say, fuck MAGA, and we say, how can you say, make America great again is not a good thing?
Despite the fact that Antifa is an actual violent organization.
Right, but it's the tit for tat type thing. Like,
right. But they tried this.
They don't think we're actually making America great again. We don't think that they're anti-fascist.
But they tried that whole situation before when they tried to. Remember when it was Bloomberg running in the primary and then he hired a psychologist to write his tweets for him to get under Trump's skin or something and be like, you're not as rich as you say you are, Bloomberg 2020. Like, that's their mindset here. They think that they will out-rhetoric. They're like libertarians. They're like, we'll out-debate you. And it's like, okay, that's not how this works. Like, show up. Honestly, it's depressing at this point. Well, on that note.
Have a nice day.
And
fuck you all.
There we go.